is just like any other kid. You can talk to her, you can ask her questions. It's the whole like staring and just kind of like ignoring the situation that hurts the most. And, you know, sometimes the questions are hard for me to answer. And so I don't take offense to it. It's just hard because having to explain it to, you know, everyone who wants to know gets hard. But I overheard Caden, one of his friends, say, well, why is she drooling? And Caden's like, well, she can't swallow. And then that was it. And I was like, well, that was simple. And here I would, you know, have like a 6-sentence answer. So, and the kid accepted it. So if you don't understand or if you have questions, I mean, just ask.
If only we all could see and talk to each other the way that kids do. Inclusion may not be such an uphill battle if we did. I am Seth Carnell, and this is the Go Shout Love podcast. Welcome back. This is part 2 of the conversation with Kati and Derek, the parents to Haylee, who is our feature kiddo for the month of July. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, I recommend pausing this and going back. It provides a lot of context to what we will talk about in this episode. The last episode was about their medical journey and Haylee's personality. Today, we will go further into the daily challenges surrounding her diagnosis, which includes sleeping at night. We also go into talking about how social media plays a factor in managing the weeds of medical journeys, not just for Kati and Derek, but for the people who are reaching out to them. We talk about Haylee's therapies, her school, which always has great stories connected with schools, I think some of my favorite, and some other really encouraging and uplifting conversation. We begin this episode talking about Haylee's sleeping, like I mentioned a second ago, which is an issue for a lot of kiddos on rare medical journeys. This month, we are trying to help this family with the purchase of a sleep-safe bed. You can participate in this by purchasing something through our online store at goshout.love, which includes purchasing one of my favorite recent designs. Want to know what I mean? Go and check it out, see the design for yourself. It's a great shirt for a great reason. And now, here is part 2. Like the secretions, how does that affect your guys' sleeping at night? Especially initially, I would imagine you have a hard time thinking I can go into a deep sleep because I'm a little worried about her choking. Is that a factor?
It's a little, it's not as risky. I personally feel like when she's sleeping, because she has the BiPAP mask, it kind of like there's pressure that it pushes it out of her mouth.
Okay.
And we don't allow her to sleep on her back because of choking.
Yeah. So
she only sleeps side to side. And that's another thing that we've done. His first home, we have night nursing most of the time, but I would sleep in her chair and we got a cot to sleep in her room. But as she's gotten bigger and stronger, just have the baby monitor full blast, and she eats overnight, so we have to get up and check on her anyway. So
yeah. Kind of taking a step back to what you mentioned earlier with the BiPAP mask. So you have found incredible support through social media or a community, at least, that's helping you guys guide along that. Can you talk a lot about that? Because I think that's occasionally missed by some families or some people, how valuable a community like that can be, the positive side to social media or stuff like that.
Yeah, I remember when we got her diagnosis, the geneticist was like, look on Facebook to see if there's groups, which I would have never honestly thought of. And there was one. And so...
Like how many members are in a group like that?
It's less than 1,000.
Not very many. I think there's 2 groups now, but
it's grown some. But yeah, when it first started, I think there was less than 1,000, and the timing was ironic too, because there was a foundation put together.
Yeah,
almost in line with when Haylee was born.
The RYR1 Foundation is based out of Pennsylvania, and it was only formed probably like 5 or 6 years ago. And so they do a lot of research. We haven't talked about, there's no cure for her genetic condition.
Yeah.
But there's research being done to see if there's medication that can help it. But the other thing is that you reach out to other moms and so different. They have the same genetic condition, but they're so different. Some need a trach, some have trachs. Some, walk, some don't. Like it's so across the board. And so again, what works for us doesn't work for other people. But the social media thing has been amazing because I've had people reach out to me to ask, like, what did you guys do in the NICU? We're in the NICU. Like, what should we ask the doctors? Just a couple weeks ago, I had someone from Croatia reach out to me.
Wow.
And I'm like, I don't know what the terms are over there, but this is what we did. So that's been the best thing that's happened to us. Is again, other people that have gone through it. And now with Haylee going forward, she's going to have hip issues because she doesn't stand and walk. Her hips are coming out of socket.
Yeah.
The other big thing is scoliosis. So to watch older kids go through surgery after surgery after surgery is super hard, but to know kind of what to expect, and not be a surprise, I guess.
Yeah. I imagine a lot of those things come with therapies to help offset some of the growth development. What therapies is she currently in? Any occupational, physical? What has she got going on?
So after we first came home, we did early intervention, is what most states call it, to where through our county, they came out to our home and did physical therapy and occupational therapy. She phased out of it when she turned 3, so we don't have that anymore. But through a recommendation, we found a therapy place local to us. It's like 3 miles from us.
Oh, wow.
That Haylee started a little after she was a year old. And she gets swimming therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, feeding therapy. It's an amazing place. It's called Britain Development in Johnson County. And right now she goes 4 days a week. So it's a lot of appointments. She's doing 2 mornings of preschool there. So we haven't integrated her into the school district yet. We're going to keep her there. So her therapists and teachers all know her so well. I can't. And that place is, besides Kaden pushing her development, she's come so far through those therapists.
I love it. That's fantastic. I can't wait to show her off and have a lot of people kind of like her pictures and shout love for her and you guys. Let's talk about her preschool. Does she like school?
She does. She just started in January, so she started a little early, but there was an open space and I was like, yes, sign us up. There's 10 kids in her class. Half of them have special needs and then half are peer models. Most of the parents just drop their kid off. But because of Haylee's suctioning needs, someone has to stay there. So yeah. I stay there, and I started out in the classroom and then I moved out to the hallway. So I just sit out in the hallway and suction her when she needs it. They have snack time, they play outside, and it's fantastic.
And what are, tell us about our classmates. How does she get along? Do they interact well with each other? The peer models, like these are my favorite stories when it comes to hearing about this. Tell me about our class.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Yeah. So we just had like her annual, like, I don't know, parent teacher conference or whatever last week. And her teacher said that Haylee, she doesn't like people in her bubble. And she will let you know when she doesn't like it because she sighs. And so now every time I sigh, I'm like, oh great, that's where she got it from. So, and then, she has an older brother. So her older brother is teaching her some naughty things, and she's maybe teaching her classmates. And I mean, it's just developmentally, I never thought that we would be at this place to like say, Haylee, don't say that or don't do that. I never thought we would be there. So I love it at the same time.
Well, and she even mentioned some of her friends outside of school.
Oh yeah.
And and
COVID's been hard, but we've hung out with a friend. We went to the zoo together outside of school, and I mean she loves it.
Excellent. And you guys love her, seeing her in that environment. That's fantastic. I kind of want to go along those lines because one of the things that always stands out to us is how these kids are treated and included. And it typically is more like positive in the school area because kids are awesome that way. They're innocent. And so all they see is another kid versus everybody else, really. So in your words, how would you define inclusion, and how has your perspective on the topic been changed since Haylee has been born? Because I'll just be perfectly honest, my vision or view on it has changed significantly since being associated with Go Shout Love. And it's something that I'm imparting as best as I can into my kids. So I guess I want to hear your perspective on inclusion.
I think it's been significantly changed throughout the course of this. And anytime something is within your close inner circle, it might open your eyes to other things. I think as far as inclusion goes, what has been tough for me, like you mentioned, the kids are always so innocent and understanding. And even if there is a kid that may be like stares or has questions, it seems like it comes from a good place. The hard part for me is when there are adults that may be in a place that we were maybe prior to Haylee, and don't fully wrap their head around some of the things that it can, some of the ways that it can affect the child. And I just feel like educating people is the best way to help them learn to include them as well. But as far as changing, I think it kind of speaks for itself. Anybody that hasn't been through something like this would be significantly changed. I always want Haylee to feel included, and it makes me want to make sure that others are feeling included as well.
Yeah, sometimes I forget, like I'm so focused on including Haylee to where I need to take a step back and I'm like, oh wait, is Caden included? Like, are we doing something that he's included in, not just for Haylee? I haven't had any like intentional negative comments yet, but Haley's young to where she's still like a little baby toddler and some of her differences are overlooked. Kids are so innocent, but then it took me back to where they notice things I think that adults don't notice. And so, when kids are like, well, what's wrong? And I'm like, well, to me, she looks like any other 3-year-old. Like, what do you mean what's wrong? So it was a shock to me that kids can just look at her and know that she's different. I don't know, that was hard to accept, I think.
Yeah.
But
does that,
and you talk about change.
I'm curious.
Sorry,
no, go ahead. Go ahead. This is the tough part about doing this virtually. The only thing I was going to mention,
yeah, you're fine. I'm sorry for interrupting.
You're good.
But I was just going to say that the thing about change is it really, it kind of takes you to a place where before Haylee, we wouldn't have necessarily, like she mentioned, with the innocence of kids and maybe asking what's wrong. We wouldn't have particularly been outspoken to it in the past, but I think, like I said earlier, and going back to my point of, I think the biggest change for me is not taking offense as opposed to making sure we educate people, instead of being hurt by it.
Yeah,
it's hard. It's really hard for me. And like I said, she's not old enough to understand how people are, the comments that they make, or like we went to a park a while ago and she tried to ask the little girl what her name was, and the little girl was just like staring at her, like didn't respond. And so it's hard to understand Haylee sometimes. And so I kind of said, what's your name? And she still didn't respond. And so I do take offense to it. And I'm not comfortable enough yet to like interject and like teach people yet.
Yeah. How do you do that comfortably? Yeah.
I make it uncomfortable.
Props to you, Derek, because I would struggle with that. Just being able to say from a good place, here's how you can teach your kid to say something or interact with not just my child, but other children who just want to be a kid. So here's a couple of phrases or a couple of key tricks. Like that's not offensive, but it still takes stepping out and the other person reacting well to it.
Yes. And sometimes, and you can't determine how they're going to react. It won't always be as your way of doing it. But yeah, I've learned to not take offense to it and do my best to say something, and how they take that is up to them. And sometimes life works in a weird way, and they may think about it down the line.
So let's hypothetically say this is kind of a small opportunity to say to a couple parents, here's a piece of advice that would just go a long way into making kids who have disabilities feel more included. Is there any one piece of advice that you would give anybody?
That's a really tough question. I feel like prior to having had this happen, it is a different perspective. And so we all want to think, we would do the right thing and we would be kind and we would be inclusive, but it's not always that easy. Sometimes, even you go to school, and I remember back, like hypothetically, just in gym class, you pick your teams and somebody's always going to be last. And so there's always going to be that feeling of not being included, but yet we're all human, and we need to understand that even once we make someone feel that way, it's not too late to go ahead and step back up and do the right thing and make sure that they are included or feel good about it.
I don't think I worded that as well as I could. Your answer was great, Derek. Thank you for that. I guess if I could rephrase that, what would you tell the world one thing about families who have a kid on a rare medical journey? What would you want them to know? I've listened to other podcasts. So
yeah. To listen to you guys all the time. Just to Haley is just like any other kid. You can talk to her, you can ask her questions. It's the whole like staring and just kind of like ignoring the situation that hurts the most. And, you know, sometimes the questions are hard for me to answer. And so I don't take offense to it. It's just hard because having to explain it to, you know, everyone who wants to know gets hard. But I overheard Caden, one of his friends, say, well, why is she drooling? And Caden's like, well, she can't swallow. And then that was it. And I was like, well, that was simple. And here I would, you know, have like a 6-sentence answer. So, and the kid accepted it. So if you don't understand or if you have questions, I mean, just ask. And if the parent doesn't want to answer, you know, they don't have to. But it's just the whole like ignoring you and just walking past and not even making eye contact. And that's the hardest part, I feel.
And that's what, to your point about advice to the other parents, that's what I would just say, to be forgiving and be accepting. It can be tough, and there are going to be times where you want to maybe have that knee-jerk reaction of being upset or being offended, and it's a part of life, and it's a part of trying to do your best to be kind to everyone.
Definitely, that's a good word. I have one last question. Unless you guys have something else, but I'll ask this question first and then kind of give you a chance to say anything else that's on your mind. So one of the goals we have at Go Shout Love is to shout love for you guys for an entire month. And then the proceeds of this goes to a particular purchase. And if I understand correctly, we're aiming for a sleep safe bed. That's not a first for Go Shout Love, but for anybody who's hearing this for the first time, what is a sleep safe bed and how can Haylee benefit from this?
Okay. So Haylee right now, she has to sleep in her own room because we have night nursing. And so the nurse stays in there with her. She's 3 and she's a big girl and she's heavy and she's still in a crib. And she's outgrowing it. And, we're to the point to where it's not safe for her anymore. But we have to pick her up and get her out of bed, and she can't lay to sit on her own. So she needs help. And so a sleep safe bed I didn't know about it until I saw other families, probably through Go Shout Love, getting them. But it's what I would probably call a hospital bed that looks not like a hospital bed.
Yeah.
So what we're wanting is, you know, for it to go up and down and to recline, and, you know, to make it accessible for her and her caregivers. And that's what she deserves. And we've been, you know, it's not something that's covered by insurance, and it's a lot of money. And so, you know, about advocating for Haylee that we've done since day one, we're still doing it. We have to fight and fight and fight for things that she needs and that she deserves.
Which includes a good night's sleep. Not just for her, but for you guys as well.
Yes.
I've been lucky enough to see one of those in person, and the family that I saw it with, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
It's incredible what that bed can do for her and for you guys. As far as questions go, that is all I have. You guys have been incredible to talk to, very open, authentic, and I think a lot of people will get some good out of this conversation. But before I sound off, is there anything that you would like to add? Anything about Haylee that you want us to know? Anything about Caden that you want us to know? Just what's on your mind. This is your story, your podcast. Feel free to share.
I think the last thing I would leave you with is just normalcy is what you make of it. And it felt normal to us before, but since having Haylee, I mean, this is the new normal, and I don't know, we accept it, and we want her to grow and have a life of her own. And we see that happening.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great way to end it. And, we never expected this, and we had a huge life adjustment, when we were in the hospital, and then when we came home, and, still is changing as, she's getting to the age where we have to figure out mobility for her and how she can get around on her own. And, but like Derek said, she's the best thing that has ever happened. And I went from not knowing any medical terms to I could tell you anything and everything about her medical stuff.
Probably not just hers. You're an advocate on the parent board now. I mean, you can probably speak into quite a bit.
It is, but if you ask me anything about like the heart stuff, I don't know anything about. There's still terminology. I'm like, wait, no,
the heart's pretty complicated.
But yeah, she's adjusting to normal, like Derek said, and she's an amazing little girl, and I know that so many people love her and fight for her along with us, and we couldn't be more appreciative for those people.
Well, we can't wait to be a part of that group. So excited for you guys to be in the Go Shout Love community. And I'm just tossing this out there. You live in Overland Park. I live in Overland Park. Maybe we can meet up at a park. I have a 5-year-old, and that would be great. At least to try to kind of just touch base while this month is going on. I would love that. I've missed meeting a lot of these families, and you guys seem incredible, and I would love to touch base at some point.
Thank you. We would love to. We're all about parks now, but it's a little safer.
Right. Plus, now that it's actually hot outside. We'll find a shaded one at least,
and not raining.
and not raining. No, it's been raining forever now. Thank you guys for sitting and talking with us.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
I mentioned before that there was a way that you can participate in shouting love for this family. Our goal at Go Shout Love is to do amazing things for amazing families with kids on rare medical journeys. And each month we shout love for families through the sale of creative apparel inspired by the kiddos. This month's Advocate design is inspired by Haylee, a sassy, smart, and determined 3-year-old from Overland Park, Kansas. Haylee's story inspires us to show up and speak out for those we love. Every purchase in July will be used to help Haylee have a safe and restful sleep through the purchase of a sleep-safe bed. Visit our website, goshout.love, to support Haylee through the purchase of a t-shirt, tank top, hat, tumbler, or other items. You can also start a subscription and shout love every month for a new family. You can do this by also going to our website. Now stay tuned, as there is more in store for everyone who listens to this podcast. Some incredible conversations and some amazing ways to go shout love. Thank you.